For anybody out there with a 2JZ VVTi motor that has a bunch of oil building up around the lip of this timing belt cover, you can expect there to be pretty common and well-known issue.
Disclaimer.
I am not responsible for any damages that viewers may experience from watching or using any of my videos. I am not a professional mechanic. I'm at the junkyard in a heat wave filming these. So if you hear me say bottom dead center, I mean before top dead center. Again, at no point in this video do I mean bottom dead center. Anyway, question. Can you replace a 2JZ GE VVTi cam gear oil seal with the cam still in the car? The answer is yes, you can. There are some pros and cons here. So obviously you don't have to remove the timing belt if you do this in the car. That's a major pro to doing it there. And a new seal helps prevent oil leaks, which is true for both tabletop and car mode. If you're doing it in the car, a big con is fighting gravity. It's going to be difficult to get that seal to go in place. And if you're doing it on a tabletop, you could actually drop the gears, which so long as they don't fall too far, they won't get messed up too bad, but they do slide out easily when you're not expecting it. If you're doing it in the car, you could leak oil on your good belts, so you'll have to kind of take care about that. And if you do it on tabletop, you could actually reverse the inner gear and you'll wind up with a P1439 code. You could badly misalign the cam doing it on tabletop, and that's not possible in the car, so that's kind of a plus for doing it in the car. And you can fine-tune if unmarked in the car. So for example, if somebody has done a VVTi rebuild wrong without marking it, you'll have weirdness on your idle, and just being able to loosen those bolts and adjust it slightly could mean for a really nice result. But if that seal is worn out, then you can't really adjust it without it leaking. So also, if you suspect somebody did a timing belt job and didn't rebuild VVTi, or if you yourself forgot it when you did your cam seals in your front main seal and you still had oil leaking, before you start thinking that you have a leaking head gasket, you might want to look closer at your VVTi being your source of your leak.
So in order to inspect this, you can remove the top cover directly and immediately, and once you've removed that, just with the 4 fasteners like this using an H5 hex, you'll probably notice a bunch of oil spread out around this lip here, and you'll probably be able to rub like a white cloth on this and find oil. You'll probably see oil and grime builds up here. Anytime you've got enough oil coming out of the lip of this, you're going to wind up with an explanation, and most of the time it's going to be that this gasket or this gasket are leaking in your VVTi gear. So in order to get to this next stage, this is still going to be on, you use the H5 again, and you're going to remove these 2 H5s very easily. This guy, who is behind here, that H5, you're going to have to weasel through one of these power steering lobe holes. So you're going to wind up having to turn that in a position you want, or just get lucky on stop starts until that's where you want. So if you're trying to loosen something like this guy here, or this guy inside of here, when you're torquing it this way, you could actually wind up turning the system. And let's say it was just resting like right in that tolerance where a valve and a cylinder head were close friends, you might wind up causing damage. So down below, your harmonic balancer is marked, and there's a position, which I can't make out too well from here, that will be top dead center. And there's these dots and these dashes, and I'll go into detail on this in another video as well. But what you have to do is you have to turn the crank from probably under the car until you wind up with the dots here, and then the dots past and the dash here, and that's up to this mark here and this mark here. Once you have these guys dash up and your timing mark is its top dead center with the dash there, and then you, from the crank, you reverse the thing. So only time you can reverse this is you reverse it from the crank so that you go from dashes back to dots. So that's how you do your timing belt. Now, in this case, you want to put it at top dead center and leave it there so that if you do reverse it from any of your work, you'll only put it as far as bottom dead center. And bear in mind that when you're aligning the bottom crank, you will have 1 revolution that's out of phase. So it's 2 revolutions for one of these. So what's 60 degrees on here is 30 degrees up here. So if you don't get the thing to align while these are in position, or if these are in position, those is not aligning, you need to turn it 1 more time. Anyway, that said, it's actually feasible to replace these in the car. and it might actually be easier to do it in the car. The main thing is when you're working in this space, the moment you've got this top cover up, you need to put down a rag inside of any space so that you don't drop anything inside of this little bucket, because then you're really going to be taking things apart. So before you remove this gear, you need to get like a scribe tool, and you need to score out thoroughly 2 spots on this. You need to score out this guy on this small circle. These are all 500 have bolts in them. And then this U shape, you need to score out the side lip and the side wall. And you need to have really good markings. Now, in order to remove this, you have to use a 14mm tool. And I actually wound up using this guy in fastener mode because it was on there pretty snug. There's a lot of caulk on here that probably added to the friction bearing on that. Some of these come off pretty easy. Some of them are work. While you're doing that, have a rag here because there will be oil coming out. And then you'll use a 10mm and you'll remove these 5 bolts, and you'll be able to remove this guy with some rotation out of here. And there'll be a little more oil that comes out at that point. Your rag will be saving you from getting that on your belts and things. Now bear in mind, if you already have oil in this space, it's probably on your belts and you need to do it anyway. But if you're trying to mitigate something in between, you can do this and you have to do it anyway. So again, my point is it might actually be easier in the car. So this guy here, he can't go out any further than this. He travels that much. And there's a mark on him and there's a mark on him. So when it's in position properly, these 2 marks are lining up when you're rebuilding it. You could actually accidentally 180 this thing and get a crazy code if you do, but then that line won't be there and you'll know something's wrong visually, and then you'll get a code and you have to redo the whole thing. So just, if you're doing this out of the car, bear in mind, you don't want to have a reverse orientation on this guy. That said, we're doing this in the car in this theory here. So you'll also notice there's a flat spot here and there's a flat spot here. So when you're putting it back together, you're going to want to align those. And then once you put everything together, you have to get this back to the markings to keep the timing preserved. But yeah, there's the next challenge here is this gasket has to be stretched to go in there, the aftermarket ones. And so I see it being difficult, even with really good tack grease and the time allowed, for you to be able to take this thing, stretch it in there, get it in place, and then get this on there. So there's something else I'll mention, just stay tuned on that thought. So when you're rushing to put this back in after you've got that in there, anytime you've got this much pressure on there, you're going to be okay. You have to maintain a lot of pressure on it. And what you'll want to do is, with a hand firmly on here, you want to put in some of these fasteners to get at least like a triangle pattern going on. And hopefully at that point you'll have achieved a good seal. Find your markings and get your tolerance back to where it was. These are actually designed with some margin, and they are margined in the factory with a laser system that there's usually markings on these. I've made another video on that, but it puts it somewhere in between the space of that little hole right there. See that window? You're always going to be somewhere in there. Anywhere in this space, you're just going to have a rough idle. If you're somewhere back here, somehow you're going to damage things. But it looks to me actually, like in this case, I'm not able to do this so terribly wrong as to bring about that kind of calamity. In any case, like, if you have this marked, you put it back roughly where it was, then you've eliminated your leak and you'll be able to do a timing belt when the parts come, or when you have a shop that'll do it for you. But a lot of guys won't do this part for you, so you might have to do that anyway. And I mean, you could do it preventatively before. I don't recommend you put a bunch of cleaners inside of this space in here, because that could actually create like a change in friction and you might take the problem from bad to worse. So, you know, dry rags, no chemicals. Now, the thing I said stay tuned for, here we go. So I was in the junkyard doing a cadaver when I learned about these things initially. And one of these guys I took apart had a hard seal in it. It was basically T-shaped, not round, and it was solid. And I have one, and I've been trying to figure out where those come from. So I'm going to update this video's comments with a part number when I find it. But I have mixed feelings about it. So first of all, it would do a great job in this application where you're trying to replace it in car. You put a little bit of assembly grease on there, slap it in place. It is not going to move. You can take your sweet time putting this back together and you'd be set. By the same token, I think it would be possible to buy yourself some time using a black rated or oil rated RTV in here, and then, you know, closing the thing up, getting it finger tight, getting it aligned, and letting it sit for like an hour or however long is prescribed by the packaging for the pre-cure time, and then torquing down the 10 millimeters while keeping the alignment on, you know, these things in place. So I mean, yeah, I think you could do that if you were in a real pinch, and if you couldn't make this thing behave, you know, the flexible, stretchy one that shrinks it. Honestly, I don't even want to try that. I've got the hard one. I want to try to find more of the hard one. The hard one sticks up just a little higher than this, but looking at how this thing functions, that doesn't seem to throw off anything. You're still going to wind up with the same final position and travel positions, regardless of the height of this gear from the face of that. I just think it's a little bit wonky that you've got plastic acting as an interface in between your two surfaces here, whereas like the rubber is going to conform, the plastic is going to act as like a washer. The other thing just to be advised of is that there is this component here on this guy. It's plastic. It has a diagonal slit on it. It's pretty much a lifetime part. All it really does is act as like a friction bearing that's enhanced by lubrication that allows for a slide on this that's smooth. This is a pretty interesting thing. When you have it out of the car, it's kind of fun to play with. Just take care not to drop it. It's easy to fall apart, and you don't want dents and scratches on these corners that are going to affect, again, that'll affect the travel. So again, my 2 cents on, yeah, I think it's possible to do this in car. I think there's situations where you might want to. I myself am studying it for that reason, and I will put a part number for the hard thing. Sorry for the 12 minutes. Hopefully it watched it on time and a half. Just wanted to be thorough. Take care.